devices ready to go?
You're on.
Thumbs up, you're all set to go? I'd like to call a work session of the Board of Selectmen, August 4th to order. Can we stand and salute the flag? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Chief.
Morning.
You're up bright and early. Happy August. Does someone want to start the conversation, or we let the chief start his issues?
Well, you have an agenda, don't you? You have an agenda, a list of things you wanted to go through, right?
I came up with things that I wanted to bring up, but,
All right, let's start away.
okay. Job performance reviews?
I've done most of them, I have one left to do, and I haven't reviewed them with the employees yet.
Okay, do you have the new list that Diane did? You know what I'm talking about, of anniversary dates?
If I could get another copy of it, that'd be helpful.
And
I'm
you've
pretty sure I
got-
have it somewhere, but...
And you've got another one this month, right?
Yeah, I did that one too. That's the one, not the one I haven't finished, but I've done the other.
I'll make a copy of that for you.
Yeah, that'd be great, that'd be the easiest thing. And I only need the one, I don't need the, I don't want the rest.
Old cruiser, new cruiser?
Waiting on parts, so the new one's not gonna get set up, they're expecting the parts in 2 weeks, and they'll make it, we'll be dealing with getting it put on.
Is the old one ready for sale?
I still have to get the stripes off. I'll be working on that hopefully soon.
Okay. Is there someone that can do that for you, or is it something you do?
Well, one of the other officers could, but I mean, to save money, I took it off the road,
Yeah.
took the plates off and transferred them rather than buy new plates and go to that. I mean, we haven't needed it, so I can't drive it somewhere to do it. And it's not that hard to do, it just takes a little bit of time. We've been busy with a variety of different things.
Okay. Union Wharf, parking issues, road issues, and new ordinance.
Parking. So Union Wharf has kind of conflicting as far as the wharf.
Unique issues.
Well, there's two ordinances for that. There's one that was passed by the town meeting in 1989, and it says no overnight parking, and the signs to that are kind of to that effect. And then there was an ordinance adopted by the Selectmen in 2003. They say and that one says it's limited to a 2-hour maximum, except for 2 spaces for handicapped access. That particular ordinance was never presented to town meeting though for a vote by our legislative body, so I don't know which takes precedence. It also talks about just handicap parking, it should really say walking disability. That can be kind of offensive to some people. I think the way we've been addressing it has been the overnight parking. We've been trying to deal with that the best we can. We ran into that at the beach. We ran into that about a week or 2 ago with somebody camping, essentially, in an RV down there. Well, when we went there the next morning, they said, well, we had moved it last night, but we came back this morning. We had no way of, without a midnight officer on, which is gonna cost a lot more than we're gonna get from parking tickets for that. There's no way to know for sure if they really did move it during that night and came back or not. There's a possibility they did. They might have moved it somewhere else and then come back the next morning early to set up and hang out at the beach again. That's the problem with just saying no overnight parking versus giving certain hours. But I think overall, we have, the place we have the most parking issue, I think, is, obviously we did deal with some of the parking at the Union Wharf and at the 19 Mile Bay parking lot. I think that, we basically have been dealing with the first offense warning, which is bright yellow, a bright orange sticker, kind of gets everybody's attention that we are looking at this and making sure. Typically what happens in that parking lot is, it's only a couple weekends a year that we have a problem where it overflows It's
Where
full.
are you talking?
The 19 Mile Bay one, not Union Wharf now.
Okay.
The second issue is, a lot of times, sometimes it's people that have come up on the weekend and they don't have a permit, or they didn't get the permit, or the permit's out at their camp and they need to get it, it can happen that way. I kind of feel, at least for that parking lot, I think I don't see a need to necessarily change things unless we want to really shift gears and be strictly enforcing it. Then really the overnight thing needs to be looked at, because the hours become more important if we're going to get into a strict enforcement type of a mindset, if you will. Union Wharf, like I said, there's the conflicting rules, but we've looked at it. And we have been kind of monitoring it more, but it boils down to a few times during the year. I talked about all the different parking lot. I guess I think another issue that comes up with the ordinance, it talks about we have to give them a sticker that they put on their bumper. Well, we haven't done that for quite a while. And it came up just recently where somebody had a hang tag and we tried looking it up by the number, and you couldn't look it up by the number anymore because people come in, they switch cars because it's a hang tag, and they've now, the number may not match up like it used to. It was recorded by number when we first did the stickers, when we first did the hang tags. There were serialized numbers, and it was kept track of in a book in the office. But now, because we just give the year sticker, which is more convenient for us and I think more convenient for them, you can't necessarily look it up as easily. We have to run the plate, we have to do things like that, but it's not as easy to, we've now got a way to look up property owners, see if in fact but if they are belong to a property owner. But we also, there's a couple thoughts I had on the parking lot up there. One option, we do allow parking during the day without a permit. If you want to cut down, I don't think that's a big issue, but that might save a few spaces if we say parking by permit only in there at all times. That might save a little bit. The other is we give four hang tags per property owner. Well, obviously we don't have spaces there for every property owner on the islands. And that's the other thing, do we just give out the permits to the islands? We give them out to residents generally. So we could just look at the island property owners, just get the hang tags. And then do we give out four? Because there's certainly not enough parking for 4 vehicles at that.
How many spots are there, do you figure?
It's probably, depends on how many trailers go in there and how sometimes when they park when July 4th weekend I pulled in and you couldn't drive around because people had parked tight to each other. I would say there's probably 50 to 60 cars can easily get in there, as long as, depends on the number of trailers and how to the edges that everybody goes. I think what we've done is we've started recording and putting the stickers on the ones that don't have the hang tags, and we're recording them at night, especially on weekends. The Friday night we'll record them all for the Saturday morning person and go out and double check it.
I had a couple of questions, but does any other board member have some questions? So
I'm trying to figure out, how did we come up with 4?
I have no idea.
It seems a little excessive. If you only have 50 spaces, it limits the access to a lot of people. People show up with 4 cars. Maybe we ought to look at that.
One of the issues that was raised is the possibility of increasing the size of that parking lot. And I know there's some wetlands around, but
some reason I thought when that was raised a few years back, I thought why I have this in my mind. It was expanded a little bit, but I think there was a limit. I thought somebody raised conservation easement. I don't know why. Maybe it was related to the back and not towards the side. I don't know. I don't know the limits of what we own down there and any restrictions on that property. That would be something to look at, I guess.
Well, we have enough uplands. If we needed to impact the wetlands a little bit, then I don't see that as a big problem.
I want to zero in, compartmentalize, okay?
Yeah,
The parking as you come out of the dock
yeah,
and turn left and go back toward Melvin Village.
along the fence there.
Along the fence on the other side.
Yeah.
People are unhooking their trailers and backing them up into the stone wall.
We have, obviously, we wrote a letter to Department of Transportation. I haven't heard any follow-up from that, if they've looked at it.
I was down on Sewell Road and they put up temporary signs.
Yeah,
You know, can we put cones out on weekends or something like
Well,
this?
again, Sewell
Is there no
Road is
parking?
a town road, right?
yeah,
The state controls parking on 109 because it's a state highway, is that
Yes.
correct? So, you know,
With their permission, can we put cones out?
I can ask. I have a feeling, given like some of the stuff we had to address with the crosswalks, they're gonna insist on conformity with the manual of uniform traffic control devices. The sign has to be certain height, certain type, and everything else, and they will wanna control them. That's I'll approach it, I'll ask them.
No.
But I just caution you that they're gonna be
and you
strict.
haven't heard anything back from them yet?
I haven't heard back.
Or
I
you're-
should reach out to them and find out what they're saying, but I have a funny feeling that,
Well, I mean, they're so concerned about the traffic flow over that road. Have them put no parking signs up.
Well, I
The problem
think
is
that's what you've requested is, hey,
yeah,
take a
well,
look at
and
this.
they did, there is a sign, but it doesn't give any direction as to whether it's 100 feet, 50 feet. You know, so people say, okay, I didn't park at the sign, they're parking like 100 feet away from it.
Right.
It doesn't say, like, you go to some other places, you'll see no parking from here to the intersection, or no here to corner. It doesn't give any guidance. And they're having the same thing up at, I think there's, looking at this, because also Diana's Baths up in Conway, they're having the same issue. People aren't parking at signs, but there's no they don't give any, it's so limited word, it just says no parking.
The other dilemma is, and I'll be straightforward, no resident has come to me, hey, they're beating the grass down next to my stone wall. And I'm not by that area all that often, but I haven't seen a near accident, so I want to be, you know,
My biggest concern is that area though, because that does, if you come out Union Wharf and you look to the right, that one weekend, the July 4th weekend, when some trucks were parked there, somebody parked there, somebody from town had parked there with their trailer, and he said, can I park there? I said, well, you're kind of blocking the view, and he moved. He was good about it, but that is a problem, is the visibility, and along the fence, if you're coming out with from the docks and you want to look to the north.
Well, certainly that side of the 19-mile bay
Union Wharf.
stretch at Union Wharf is more problematic to begin with, because you got a hill, you got a curve, so you got visibility, you got people coming down the hill, as opposed on the other side where people tend to park back toward the other lot on the side, and it's
There's
pretty
no signs
pretty
there.
wide open.
Yeah, it's
right?
wide open, and no accidents, no complaints.
and you don't have driveways with people coming in and out of either.
To the north of Union Wharf is a concern, and I did address that in my letter to the state. I haven't heard I don't even know if they've looked at it. I'm sure they have, but I haven't heard anything back. I know when I talked to Bill Boynton, he said that they were gonna pull the file to see why they put those signs up. There may have been some agreement when they put them up to say, no parking for this half mile, but they'd have to actually pull the file.
Well, they want to do it the right way like you do.
I don't remember in previous years, the parking along that area like
No.
this year.
No,
So,
we had parking, probably about 2-3 years ago, it started a few vehicles along the south of, where there aren't any signs,
mhm.
on the south, of the bridge over, right by our parking lot. People
Right.
started, as it got full, they started coming down the road a little more. And the reality is too, if you've got a trailer and it's a busy weekend, it's a heck of a lot easier to park it along the
Yes.
side of 109 than to
Then
try and snake it in
there
there.
are some people that come right down to the bridge and pull off the pavement.
Even if there's space, because it's probably, I'm sure it's a lot easier than trying to snake a trailer out
Mhm.
in that crowded parking lot. And so that started a few years back. Nobody complained, there's no sign saying no, and they were off the pavement, so they weren't breaking any laws. And we haven't had any issues there. Now this year though, they seem to be starting on the north side. When that got jammed up that particular weekend, I saw a car there yesterday, day before, there was a car north of that sign, a distance. So I'm sitting there going, is it within that area that's supposed to be no parking or not? I don't know. It was a smaller sedan, so it wasn't blocking the view, but I saw one still in that northerly area, so.
To shift gears, let's talk about the dock area. First of all, I noticed that the signs on the dock itself about when people can use it, there's 2 different times. So that would seem rather easy between you and Jim to
Clean that up.
straighten that out. I don't know if there's a town ordinance involving that or not.
There is, that's part of that lake.
And this is on the dock itself, and I assume that's for
I
both.
believe it talks about,
Is that for boats and cars?
I thought there was on this too, Union Wharf, yeah, here it is. They can be docked there. It's subject to an ordinance from '87. So there's an ordinance already in place on no overnight docking is allowed. It also talks, I think, about a 4-hour limit.
But there's overnight docking happening currently,
Sure.
as we speak.
Okay.
I mean, I just happened to be down there a couple of times this week in the
I
same.
did put
Same boat.
warning stickers on one,
Mhm.
On the boats?
on one of the boats, yes.
Because I looked just the other day when we had a boat call.
Yeah,
On the piers,
yeah.
on the pilings, there are 2 different times of when they have. to-
Yeah, right, no, I'm talking about putting the warning sticker on one of the boats that was there overnight.
Yeah.
And then there's another one I know over the weekend, I believe it was over the weekend, that Sergeant Hathcock mentioned, so.
And the signs, a couple of them have been removed along the fence.
Okay.
The next issue that deals with Pier 19 is, in your opinion, does the ordinance need to be clarified or be more workable? Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to make the police department Gestapo, but there are some deficiencies or confusions currently, aren't there?
I think, to me, it would be easier if there were set times between this, kind of like, you go to a city and you go and park and they say, the meters run between these times, you can park this many hours. And then after this time, the meters aren't checked.
Can you work on that for us?
Sure, I'll work on something like that.
And
I mean, the issue when it came up,
And you have a good legal mind, whether it's something that needs to go to town meeting to be discussed, or whether the selectmen can do it. I want to do it whatever's the fairest way so people can have input.
I think there's 2 issues that come up. My understanding is the selectmen can make an ordinance, but then if you look at some of our earlier ordinances, it actually said this, was signed by the selectmen and then approved at until the next town meeting.
Yes.
But I think for town properties, you can set policies, procedures, and rules for usage of town property. So it kind of, when you're talking, that's where it gets kind of fuzzy. So in other words, you can say down at Davis Park, Davis Field, no alcohol. You can say that because it's a town-owned land and you have the responsibility of making sure it's safely and appropriately used. But you can't say, like, no open containers on the roads in town, like somebody walking, of alcohol, because that's now in public places, that's not town property per se. There are towns that have that ordinance, but then it would have to go to town meeting, because that imposes not just a restriction on town-owned land, but the public generally. And we're also not a home rule state, so you're limited, we're limited to what we can regulate.
What the legislature tells us we can do, right?
Yeah.
My thought is, and I'll ask the board what they think, is I'm interested in something that allows you to do your job, that it's balanced and fair. I'm not looking to make
Those are new this year in Wolfbrook.
Yeah.
I noticed when we were down there for a boat show last week, and it came up because of an issue at our boat show last year, and there were, some people like, well, so anyway,
Right,
it's an
that provides that
example,
kind of clarity.
it's an example of, there's no ambiguity there as to, the hours that the, I can send out, the hours that the parking is enforced, when there is no parking allowed, the whole 9 yards. And so I thought that was interesting because, they came down, a couple of selectmen came down last year when we were having our boat show, and there were boats not on the non-boat show docks, and how come they're here? And it's like, okay, well, So they're public docks, and so they have taken a step
Yeah,
to clear.
one night I was working late here, this was a while back, and I saw a boat sitting there at it was like midnight. I was working a night shift, it's just after midnight, and I said, you know what, this thing's gonna be here overnight. I was all ready to slap a sticker on it, and I was actually parked over at Pier 19 store to walk across the street. And then somebody pulled in and got on it and left a little after midnight to go out. They were probably visiting one of the establishments in Wolfboro and on their way back, you know? But my point is, I mean, I have to, if it says overnight, I gotta be sure they're there at both ends of it.
Oh, yeah.
And that they haven't moved it in the interim during the middle of the night, some people have argued that in the past. It's like, come on, you know, it's not
Well,
necessarily
it's called
the case.
being fair and using common sense,
The
discretion.
problem is, what we've had in the past, is some people exploit it and take advantage of us by, you know, it's cheaper to do that, pay the fines, if you will, than it is to rent a dock for a week if they're staying for a week. That's the other side of that, is the kind of, the vast majority don't, but every once in a while, that's why you have to end up with signs like that. It's few people that wanna really push the envelope and
And then we talked about, I know this has nothing to do with the police, but, I mean, primarily that dock space, we need public safety. We need
Yes.
the fishing game, we need fire boat. Have we thought about dredging on the right side?
Yes,
Just so we can get,
yeah, that has been talked about.
That's part of a future project too.
We've also been talked about the ice damage, there's a post that's missing, and
it's over at the beach, right?
No.
Or you're talking, oh no, it's over there too.
That's on the wharf, yeah.
But the last couple of boards said, let's get Lang Pond Road done, let's get the two boat launches done, but
Obviously, that affects the usability of the north side of the wharf.
Right.
right,
It's not very deep.
and
so-
the engineers I talked to and the road agent I talked to is, that takes all the weather and the ice pushing sand and,
right, but if you could move the public parking over to that side,
you know,
you know, or do something to
Sure.
segregate it so that you didn't have that. It's kind of intermingled, I see them
Well,
scooting in between the fishing game and the fire boat.
I think as it stands now, it'd be ideal to have parking on both sides, but even with parking on one side, there's still opportunity for people to park along that side. Where it gets jammed up is when somebody says, oh, here's my parking place.
Right.
So
Yeah.
suddenly they get taken up by homesteaders, and then you get somebody that comes in and needs a place to dock, just to, go to the store or whatever, and
Or
it's not
launch it,
available. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that's the
you
big
need
thing,
to-
is the launching, and
Right.
that's what I see that as, launching and access to,
Mhm.
again, some people, you need materials out to their place, whatever. It's not like we have a big, like a village district, like Wolfboro maybe has, you know what I'm saying, right near the docks, and
Mhm.
people come to go, we go for the one store, and they have some dock space available to them anyways.
Yeah.
But, and obviously they do come in, one of the camps comes and other people do come in just for the ice cream, but, and other stuff, but.
I had two other issues, but I want to hold off in case co-members here. Community policing programs and new police station I have on my agenda. Is there something else you folks want to talk about first?
So, I mean, obviously, community policing can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Usually means that you're connected to your community and know what's kind of happening and what's going on. It talks, they talk about in the years when we went from having foot patrols in the cities, foot beats, to officers just responding to calls and cars.
Could I ask you to do something?
What's that?
People watch you on TV. Could you please read this letter
The whole thing?
into the record, yes?
We have traditionally helped out and responded to all requests for community groups when we have the ability to do so. We also have as lenient and open door policy as possible. We typically have more accessibility than most agencies. The design of the station, staffing, and security issues limit our ability to have more accessibility. By that I mean like an open door kind of a policy, if you will. We used to have it more, but then obviously Department of Labor said we had to lock the door. Plus our insurers said we had to keep the door locked and not take prisoners in there and that sort of thing. Anyway, some programs, we've been asked about our child seat safety inspections. That was a request through Facebook. Requires a 4-day training course for an instructor. I've been in contact with the training provider, which is a safety initiative. I can't remember exactly, but I know she works at Dartmouth Hitchcock. Anyway, there's none in the area, but they're supposed to offer one in the area in the fall. Until help arrives, this is training I just got an email about earlier this week. Individual preparedness training teach citizens basic skills to keep people with life-threatening injuries alive until professional help arrives. There's a trainer coming September 11, 2017 in Concord. I intend to send somebody to that. And then if there's a request, we can put on something for that. Facebook, we have a social network page, provide messaging for the public, provide information on current events and issues. Try to focus on topics of personal safety and community events. And when possible, I include road closures, where I try to I do not want criminal reports coming through there, because it's not a live interaction or sex offender registration. I had to tell somebody if they're modifying that, they need to come in person to be in compliance with the law. I appreciated that they were trying to be timely and they had the intent to follow the law if they were not doing it literal. Tuftonboro Times, I submit articles regularly on timely topics and inform the community of issues. I've been regularly mentioning the opioid issue and how it directly and indirectly, I should say, impacts the town, it could impact the town. Business information, one of the things I've thought about is we need to update our business information sheets. We try to do that, but they probably should be updated. People, places, now phone numbers have changed, I'm sure. Coffee with a Cop, that's a program that some places started. Waterville Valley did it. It's kind of a program where the public can meet, interact. Usually it's not a restaurant. We don't really have a coffee house, coffee shop here, but I thought about doing it up at like the old townhouse. It's a place where people can come and ask questions and just hang out and meet in general. Property marking, we do have an engraver available if somebody wants to mark their valuables. We do the disposal of unwanted drugs. Still need to look at the viability of placing a drop box at the station. I know we can't put one outside in the lobby area. It's not possible due to the design and staffing. We need video to do that. It might be possible to put a drop box to the wall. I heard Sanford, Maine has such a setup, but obviously New Hampshire has our own rules and regulations in place on them, so that might not be the same as Maine's, but we do participate in the DEA drug take-back program, which is easier to administer than having our own drug take-back program. If we did it like what they do in Wolfboro, we are a member of the Lakes Region Household Hazardous Waste Facility program in Wolfboro, and they do it twice a year also, third Saturday of June and August. My point is that there are 4 times a year with such a program in the area to mitigate the need, and that might mitigate the need for a through-the-wall drop box. And I can also make sure, I know I try to do the, at least the DEA take back when we do it, I put it on our Facebook page. I can obviously add the Lakes Region Household Hazards one to get that information out.
And the limiting factor there is what?
To
I mean,
do-
aside from the Dropbox, I understand.
If we were to do like Wolfboro does, if I were to say, come drop your drugs off today, you have to have 2 officers present, you have to store it, and then you're supposed to take it with 2 officers down to the incinerator to dispose of it. If we do it with DEA, the New Hampshire rule, we fall under federal guidelines as opposed to state guidelines. Federal DEA guidelines for that 1-day take back is 1 officer, sealed up, we drop it off, the DEA takes it to the incinerator, they've got it all stripped. We have to, the record keeping is, they do it. Makes it a lot easier versus if we do it, we have to categorize stuff. I helped with the Wolfboro one in June, and they have to have a pharmacist present to categorize the different types of drugs. And certain ones have to be disposed of one way.
So if you do it with the DEA, they do all the work.
It goes into 1 container, and they take it and they do all the work.
So I guess what I'm getting at is that container that it goes in
Yeah,
is at the transfer station.
with an officer there.
Okay, it has to have an officer
We
there.
have to have an officer there. We can't ask any questions, we don't,
No, I was just wondering why we can only do it 4 times a year. I mean,
well, we do it twice a year for the DEA,
well, twice a year then. Is it-
because it has to be when they
Right.
schedule it. And
There was another wrinkle this last time, and I'll say you handled your frustration very well. DEA was all ready to go, you were all ready to go, but you were waiting for the word from the Attorney General.
What happened with that was, well, we had a change of Attorney General, so he wasn't aware. The new one coming in had not been briefed as to the need to get that done, and so chiefs obviously reached out to him and said, we need this to get this going. And, you
I mean, isn't there?
So where is the incinerator?
I want to say, is it Hooksett? It might be a Mass. There's one in Hooksett, which they sent us a thing. I think there's a fee. If we were to do it, there might be a fee. We have to have 2 officers, and they always schedule certain days when they do it. Go ahead.
Sorry. Why is there an officer needed there?
Because it's controlled drugs, somebody could try and steal them.
When the person trying to put them in the container?
The container's just a cardboard box.
Well, maybe that's the issue. I mean, the problem, there are a couple of things I find troubling about this. One is you can only do it 4 times a year, and an elderly population is gonna forget what day it is. I do all the time.
Yeah.
Secondly, then things get flushed down the toilet, at which point they become part of the environment, which is what we don't wanna have happen. Thirdly, you're working with a cardboard box. You talk about a lockbox here in the police station. Why couldn't we have a lockbox at the transfer station that only the DEA could get into?
I don't think they'll do it.
Well, whether or not they'll do it or not currently is not really the issue, because they're not doing it. But maybe that's the goal we need to get to, so that at any given point in time, a citizen can drop off unwanted drugs. I mean, are we trying to get them out of the system?
Yes, but we also want to make sure that they're not being diverted another way.
Well, I
too.
think fearfulness about diversion at the transfer station is far outweighed from having them in a dresser drawer someplace. I mean, I would rather have those drugs out of the system, if you will. So in your capacity as the current head of the Police Chiefs
I'll see
Association,
what I
bring
can-
that forward.
Let's see what we can do about bringing that forward. You would think that would be a situation, but the problem is a lot of these rules that came into effect was because there was a drug take back at a police station not too far from here that went very badly.
Well, I'm sure there are any number of reasons.
And that poisoned the,
That's what created all these rules. That's why there has to
Yeah.
be 2 officers. That's why there has to be
camera and all
dual
that.
control and, well, no, they're not even cameras, I think, for theft, so nobody, people are desperate for drugs, they'll try reaching their hands in, they'll rip the thing out of the floor, they'll do anything, and the other, I mean, and it's also, part of that is, if you haven't advertised a Dropbox, people know there's gonna be drugs in there, versus,
Right.
you know, you don't know necessarily.
But at some point in time, you have to move the ball forward. You can't react, you have to act. So that's all I'm asking.
Yeah, and I just, unfortunately, because things went badly at a police department, which you'd think shouldn't happen, that's why the rules were put in place, and that's why originally it was said the chief had to be the one to have the key to the lockbox, the drug take-back box, which obviously that became an issue in large agencies because they're not even handling the property in large agencies, so it
Well, I
dual
mean,
control and.
You have to make up your mind whether or not you're gonna deal on the state level or the federal level. And if you're dealing at the federal level, at least we have rational minds making decisions as opposed to the state reps. So, I hope that got on the film. I never come here anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, whereabouts are you on your side?
Self-defense, we've been approached, we've done them in the past, and we had like 2 people show up, and then we had the same 2 people show up, and we had it again. We've done a little bit with that. We were approached in the last year about doing it, because there was a hesitancy. It was actually gonna be in Wolfboro, and there was hesitancy in Wolfboro about doing it, and Wolfboro ended up doing it, so we ended up not. It was a Tuftonboro resident, but through a Wolfboro program they asked about it, but New Hampshire Blue and You, that's something I've gone to, and that has to do with kind of breaking down barriers and understanding between different diverse public groups and law enforcement. I've attended a program on that. We've had, in the county, there's another one, I believe, planned for this fall on that. Andrew Smith, he's the New Hampshire Juvenile Justice Disparate Impact Coordinator, I believe is his exact title. He's come to the county, done some training on that. Chief Weatherby and Marlboro talking about starting kind of this group, maybe in the Lakes region or Carroll County, to kind of have these discussions. I also spoke with the coordinator, the facilitator at my subgroup at the New Hampshire Blue and You was, she was actually from Conway, so I said, has that been talked about? And she said, we've talked about it, maybe we will. It's something, we're not quite facing the same issues that Manchester and Nashua are related to. Largely it's minority groups and how they look at, and refugees and how they look at law enforcement. And I think that was a frustration at the last one I went to, because it was supposed to also cover, people with different sexual orientations. I can't go through the whole alphabet, I can't memorize them all, but anyway, different sexual orientations and different belief systems, and so, which is probably a larger, more common thing here than it is versus the racial divides that some in inner cities that deal with. But anyway, one of the things, and this came from the Joint Loss Management Committee, is Alice, which is alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate, and we had the Joint Loss, Sergeant Hathcock has attended train the training. It's supposed to say train the trainer training, which gets very repetitive. Anyway, it was brought up at the Joint Loss Management Committee meetings to have the training on this topic for the town employees, and we can also offer that to businesses in the school. Tuftonboro Central School, have done programs with them and continue to do so, through walk and bike to school day, bicycle safety day, tour the town hall, police department. I also reach out to the superintendent's office on matters that may be of mutual concern. Obviously, I spoke to them about how the changes to New Hampshire gun laws may impact our ability to address complaints of people with firearms on school property. Their policy said that if they saw somebody on school property, they would be calling the police to remove them from the property. And I had a conversation about that. It's a constitutional right, and since it's a federal law that says no, you would have to have federal enforcement. But it was kind of agreed that it would not be just because they had firearms, they have to be disorderly or something else beyond that. Old home days, I helped out with the old home days. I did the dunk tank last year, and I'm scheduled not to do the dunk tank. We're not doing that this year, but I'm gonna help out with other things related to that. And this year, project graduation, I participated in that, where police and fire played softball with the seniors over at the Nick. What is it? Feeney's Men's Breakfast or something. There's a group that meets in Wolfboro. I attended earlier this year with Chief Rondo to discuss changes to the gun laws. That was a topic. And, it was interesting. There were a number of Tuftonboro residents that went to that too. And if time allows and scheduling, I will try and attend more of those.
Comments, guys?
So any firearm awareness training or help?
We have been asked about that in the past. I was gonna put that on there. We haven't done it. We actually did at one point do NRA's Eddie the Eagle. I've kind of tried to shy away from that because it might be, I think there's a bit of a political, the message was good,
Then
but there might be some political repercussions associated with that. So I shied away from that. We have offered, if there was an interest for it, we definitely would do it. We did, obviously we've done this before in Alton. When the sergeant and I were in Alton, we did it. We actually went out to the range, but the town had a range. We don't have a range, and that brings a variety of issues that come to mind when you go to the range, especially if it's not your own range.
Well, the county has a range, so.
The county has a range, and so I'd have to get permission from the county to use it for that purpose and make sure people sign their lives away appropriately before they go out there, and that we're comfortable that we have enough supervisors to students, instructors to students, and that they're, yeah. Not that this necessarily relates to that per se. We have offered LEOSA HR 128, which is the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act. Those residents that are retired law enforcement, HR 218 allows them to carry throughout the country as long as they certify and meet either their home states where they're retired from. If they meet certain criteria, they can qualify with their agency or their home state where they worked or where they're living. I guess it's their home agency where they retired from or where they're living. So if there's a case where somebody needs to do that, we have a couple people in town that have asked us for that. If they decide not to go to avail themselves of there's a private range. And I found another one that will do it. So we have done that. That's not really a general public thing, but it is a firearms thing that we have helped a few residents with. And as far as firearms awareness, we certainly would be willing, and I, obviously have maybe talked too much in the past about it because I've gotten some nasty.
Well, no, I mean, I think the public obsession with guns is not going to end here in New Hampshire, especially with this legislation.
Yeah.
So at least we could try to make them safe, or as safe as we can. I mean, I guess the other part that I was thinking of was that inevitably there's going to be another Sandy Hook or some other terrible event.
Mm-hmm.
And do we have the capacity as a police department to go into the school to counsel?
To counsel?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to deal with the active threat.
No.
You're talking
I'm
the
sure
after effects.
I'm sure you can deal with the active threat.
Well, we're not psychologists or counselors, but
Well, then-
that's
then-
the school. The school would, I would
Right,
expect
but
to do
it's,
that.
the children are gonna look, it happened at the school my grandkids went to.
Yeah.
That some people came in that shouldn't have been there, and then so they have a police officer there, but part of the police officer being there is actually interacting with the children
Yeah.
to question their concerns.
Yeah.
So I guess
Oh.
that element of the training needs to happen. I mean, sometimes one would think that maybe a female officer might be a better communicator in that regard. Who knows? But you don't have a female officer. But in your officer training courses, you may look at some of that, because I think part of the role that you play in Tuftonboro is the element of safety.
Mm-hmm.
In the minds of the children and the people of the town. So if the children are upset about something happening someplace else, you need to be the one that goes in and says, okay, the element of safety remains here, and this is why, and this is how we're going to deal with it. So just a thought.
Okay. Yeah.
You do have a program that's not listed on here
Probably.
for the elderly.
Oh, the Good Morning program, yes.
Program, right?
Yeah, which,
And we've talked about before, I know you don't have a lot of participation at this point, but my sense is still that there are folks here in town that it would be great to engage with that so increasing the visibility and reaching out to.
So the county-
It's designed for folks that are living alone, correct?
yes,
It's basically a wellness check kind of thing.
they don't call in by a certain time, we'll call them first and check on them and
Right,
check out the house and
right.
then check with whoever they've listed as contacts to see if maybe they are gone to visit somebody and forgot to tell us they weren't gonna be around.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sort of
Yeah. Do we ever have a situation where one of the officers is into the school just to talk to the kids? An assembly where they sit and have a conversation with the kids. I mean, part of the whole thing I think in community policing is, the police department provides protection to the town, but you're also people. And, and engaging our youth sort of on a more one-to-one level is a way to help flesh out the dimensions to the police officers and what the police force does. They're not just writing tickets for people alongside the road or responding to domestic violence issues or, you know, all the
Negatives.
the negatives, right?
Yeah.
The-
So, when I first got here, Ken Perry was the principal. He was very open to us spending time there. It also helped that I had a daughter there.
Mhm.
So I was, you know, so there was, I had a natural kind of, you will, link between, you know, her friends, you know, and he made a big deal about us, and we did it. Go there and have lunch occasionally with the kids, and he had, every other year we did a program. We had like a law enforcement day. They'd have like, when the state police had enough resources, they would send their helicopter up, or they'd send that was before I got here, they did that. When I was here, they would send their bomb squad truck and robot. Kids loved seeing that. We had a canine at the time, and kids liked seeing that, you know. And Fish and Game would do a little thing. Kind of funny to see some of the comments afterwards were kind of cute. And, you know, sometimes what struck some people was kind of humorous, you know. Fish and Game and having good hiking boots seemed to be a big hit with some of the kids. And Marine Patrol would come down to the dock. And Principal Perry was very good about having us in, inviting us in, open door for us to come in and spend whatever time we needed. Things change, administrations change. They felt they didn't have time to do that, devoted day to stuff like that anymore. They didn't have time to do some of that. We had a DARE program too when I came here. You know, there's a lot of debate as to whether or not that's effective as a true prevention program. But what I saw it best as is that kind of interaction. Seeing, you know, kids would be more likely to come up and, hey, Officer so-and-so, I saw, you know. Again, it's their building, their program, and they have their challenges that they need to meet and their requirements. They felt they didn't have the time. I think we did a good job here with the DARE program. Some of the other, it's a district though, and some of the other towns had problems scheduling it, keeping it with the schedule. Because it was a number of weeks, and then all of a sudden if somebody couldn't come in, there's one particular town that lost their DARE officer. So they had to stall it for a few weeks, have another DARE officer come in, then he left. And then it really became disruptive because they were trying to make their schedule, and there were two towns in particular that were having a real problem with the scheduling of the DARE officers and the DARE program. They felt it became disruptive. And that's when Dan Buttrick did it here. We were committed to it, and it went, and Ken Perry was committed to it from the principal side of it, administration, and it went well, and it worked well as far as that interaction. We made sure we had people there. But it's a district-wide environment. The superintendent office was having problems with some of the other schools, and they just said, we'll do our own prevention. And they're actually mandated by law to do prevention programs of some sort. How effective they are, that's another story. There's been concerns about that. There's concerns about DARE. There's another program called LEAD, but again, and I can look at that, there's cost for it, and then I'd have to have the school buy into allowing us to do it too. And my take is, given what they feel their requirements are and their needs to meet, you know, federal guidelines and No Child Left Behind and the state guidelines, et cetera, I don't know that they have the time. We got kind of short notice on a few of the programs where we did work with them this year, so because of their needs for times and changing things around.
Well, maybe just as simple as, I mean, they don't have a resource officer. They have one at Kingswood, I'm sure, or more than one, for all I know. they have the need for a resource officer, whether they know it or not. I mean, there should be some presence just for, you know, psychological reasons, if none other. So maybe it's just a matter of having a conversation about, we're gonna walk through every now and then, but we don't wanna disrupt anything. And we wanna be a presence here, you know, not that we run a police state, but it slows some of the conflicts down, just knowing, you know, there's a new thing.
And we do, you know, I did forget on there too, we do the Halloween thing. I think that's great because the kids come in, see us in a positive thing, joke around, and they get their big candy bars, don't get the little ones. And, you know, I joke around with them, and it's a good time to see them in a it's here, but it's in a lighter
Right.
time. And there's some kids that just come for that, and that's their highlight, is to just come here and get their candy, and they're not gonna go tour the neighborhood over there, but some do.
I'm kind of sad here, and as my mother said, listen and silent are spelled with the same letters, but I feel urged to speak, and I speak for Lloyd Wood. First of all, I respect you, I've known you a long time. The last guy I hired was your roommate, I think, at the police academy, David. And we talk all the time. If I am micromanaging, say, time out, Lloyd. If I'm inappropriate, please stop me. I'm working hard not to be like this. But in the last 5.5 years as selectman, I hear the constructive comments about you and your department, and I could spend 15 minutes listening to them. The one thing that these intelligent people say is, boy, Andy does a great job on NPR radio. He does a great thing in Maine. He does a great thing in the Chiefs Association. And you do. I can go to you on a legal issue and get a straight answer. I am speaking for Lloyd Wood. This is the year you need to make a 90% turn. Community relations has to change, and we need you to use your intelligence to do that. Can I give you, okay with what I say so far?
Listen? Yeah.
Okay. I go online from the IACP, and they talk about Sandwich. That is 1 and 2 towns away. Newspaper, Good Morning Gilmanton, keeps the police in touch. You only have one person. This was just in yesterday's Laconia Sun. First night out, look at the officers dishing ice cream and whatever. You reach out in your own way, but it never makes front page, Chief. And call it tooting your own horn. You know, every board of selectmen that I've been part of has mentioned, gee, am I using the right words here? I hope so. I looked at the statistics, for example, in 2016, you are not 24/7, and yet you take call and are always there. It's 5,737.7 hours, and guess what? Community service was 36 hours. That's 0.1%. Let me continue. Some sample programs, and I will just go random here. Why can't your cruiser check the dump stickers 2 or 3 times a year, and if there's an emergency call, leave? That's how you could help Clay out, but you're meeting people, you're helping the town, just a thought. The house check program, this is from Auburn, New Hampshire.
Yeah, we do that.
Yeah, what Auburn does is they put a copy of this right in the town report. He fills this out here, the check sheet's on the back, the person tears it right out. What it does is, it allows you and the department to get credit for something. There are several police chiefs in the state that are doing the high five program, exactly what he was talking about. On Friday, the chief of police is there and he high fives every single kid who gets off the bus. That's with the permission of the school. costs no money. Something else that could be done, and I personally would like to see you start it next week, is have a list of the calls, just like it was a newspaper report. Date, time, and the activity. We get to review it. These guys are and I am forever asking, what was the activity, and what was this call, and what was that call? I'd like to see you bring that into us every Monday. A couple of other things does your department reach out and do an alarm, a building inventory where the officer does 1 or 2 a day, and all the buildings that are alarmed, and who is the owner, and I'll go back to the house check program. I've been told that when the officer is talking to this guy here, his neighbor comes over, is everything okay? Well, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing. Another thing is traffic control. We had the church fair, we have concert by the beach, we have fishing derby traffic that create issues, and people say they very seldom see the police cruiser. I don't know how to resolve that, but I'm just telling you, and these are not people who are bitching, they're just commenting. The swim areas, it's not, 3 out of the last 4 times I've been down to the swim areas, meeting a family member, there's some drinking going on and dogs going on. And I asked, I said, to the lifeguard, did anyone call the police? Well, no, you know, Lloyd. So,
Well, we've been checking in with the lifeguards, and we had some issues down there, and we had to address.
Yep.
It's, as far as, some of the drinking, is my understanding, has been rather, obviously I checked due to Melvin Village, I went down there on a DCYF over an issue, and there was a question about drinking on the beach, and people were mixing it though, so they're hiding it.
Now,
But there were containers in the trash too, so I mentioned the officers that we need to watch
in
that.
fairness, the incidents that I saw was a little lap dog sitting next to a person. We're not talking about a vicious mutt. The drinking was, in a container.
No bad dogs.
Right, and whatnot. So I want to be fair in my presentation here like this. I will summarize that. Remember a selectman a while ago, you need to toot your own horn, and that needs to change. That leads into the next issue is current selectman asked what your time allotment is to the chief's police position, and how much time that would take you out of town, and who would handle your workload. Have you given that any thought? First of all, did I represent that issue correctly?
Okay, that wasn't exactly how it was phrased to me. It was phrased about coverage when I was gone, is how I took it to be. So that's why I've done this up, kind of talking about Sergeant Halfcock covers when I'm gone, and I've always been around. And, we have an organizational chart that goes on our wall along with our, mission, values, and vision statements. And even if I'm not in town, I'm still usually in contact, available if anybody has any questions or concerns. I cited the time I was down in North Carolina, and I read online some people thought about protesting out at PAC 2000. I called back here, got hold of the sergeant, got him informed as to what was going on, and we talked about what we need to do in case it were to happen. As far as time commitments, there is some time commitments. Yesterday I went down, there was for 2 meetings, but I also stayed till late last night after I came back from those meetings. So, and town's covered, and I am working extra hours to cover that time.
This answers or satisfies my curiosity, so it's well written.
Yeah, I think we just needed to know who to call.
Yeah, the sergeant would be a good call. And I get 2 cell phones, so it's good.
Right, right, but it's difficult to be in 2 places at one time.
It's true.
So it'd be, I mean, I'd feel better if there was a real secure decision-making process that happened without you. So delegate,
That's,
because I think you can't, I mean, this is an opportunity that you have that lasts a year. There's no reason to discount that because of an inability or an unwillingness to delegate a little more authority. So I'd encourage that.
that typically if I'm, in the state, I don't necessarily say it's all yours. If I'm leaving the state, if I'm for a period of time, I went out to help my daughter move in New York. I tell the sergeant, he's the guy, but I'm still available. And it wasn't like I was crazy distance away. In North Carolina, that was a tougher one because I wasn't just going to be popping right back. It was a thing. But I also think, what we've got our lead senior officer has 10 years total experience, so it's not like I'm leaving it to somebody who just got out of the academy and.
Right.
Well, Lloyd mentioned wanting more reports, and maybe that's the job for Officer Hathcock, is to come in every second Monday or whatever it is and do a police report for us. I mean, get a little depth of bench when it comes to.
I like what I read in the newspaper. Monday, 8:38, summons or warning or whatever, and there'd be a list of it. And what I have found, Chief, is if that's presented on a weekly basis, or I'll compromise a bi-weekly basis, people watch that unit right there, and they get a lot of information. And when they hear you and Adam and Clay speak, they go, wow, those are pretty intelligent people. So that's public relations, and we need to foster that, in my opinion.
So do we want to talk about the station?
That was the next thing. Thank you for listening to me, Chief. I appreciate it. The next thing is new police station.
Yes.
Who wants to go there?
Well, we gotta do it sooner or later, and I think the study that I read, which I think was 2011,
That was what, 14 or 12.
maybe it was 14.
Well,
There
there's
was also
several.
one 2 years
There's
ago.
like 5 or 6 of them, but yeah,
Yeah.
the most recent, yeah.
The one that was 2 years ago said there were 3 options,
Right.
and it was assuming that the library was moving. However, correct me if I'm wrong, that floor plan for over there, the remodel, could be used for a new station wherever on our piece of land, correct?
Essentially, yes.
Yes. Now, you still, yes, the architect has to come up with the fine tuning and whatnot, but it's a rendering that is functional, correct?
Yes.
How do we get you a new station?
Well, do we feel like, the library, I think, is a couple of weeks late on getting back to us. And so I don't know if they've made up their mind which direction they're going. But once that happens, I mean, we really do need to be prepared to start the discussion, I would think. Some sort of progress needs to be made. We can't have the police station here forever, in spite of what some people might think. I mean, it's a
The
problem.
need's there, it's just how do we get from point A to point B?
Right, right. And, I mean, have we talked about putting it down by the fire station?
Yes.
On that lot? Yeah.
We've talked
There's
about
been
the
talk
deer
about on the Dearborn property
Right.
across from.
And there's advantages to both?
I don't know what the advantage of the Dearborn property would be.
Closer to the school.
Could walk to the library to get.
Well, when it comes to the Dearborn property, this is Lloyd Wood speaking,
Yeah,
having put a couple of pedophiles away that attacked and killed girls that were walking between library, playground, and school, my first choice, Lloyd Wood says, would be put the library where it's visible from those
The
3
police
areas.
station.
Yeah, put the police station.
Yeah, police station.
The school is our most valuable asset in the town, if you will, in the sense of, how the building and
children.
the children there.
Right.
Mhm.
So it makes sense to be as close, to me, as available and close
I'm
to that.
sold.
I mean, I
But-
realize
but
it
then-
has to,
So,
But then over by the fire station is not that far either, it's just not within sight and it's not,
So the
By the
the
library.
library trustees are working on concepts right now, and they're gonna, when they get done with the architect they're working with and look at options, are gonna, my understanding is, say, hey, this is the direction that we wanna go, which will certainly fill in some blanks in terms of, you know,
options are available.
right, options that are available. But in terms of solidifying a direction for a police station at this point, I think that's, it makes sense to sort of work along with where the library trustees are going with their project, but be thinking in terms of maybe looking at a whole new structure, and sort of scrubbing the last committee's work that was done to verify that what was included there, we still think today is the right mix of features and spaces and provides all the capabilities. I mean, the law continues to get tweaked and this, that, and the other things that today are, I see police departments all over responding to, you know, for instance, having a sally port, all kinds of stations that aren't all that old, suddenly it's like, yeah, now I gotta build a sally port on, because a few years ago that wasn't part of what was recognized as important to provide for proper policing. So
One of the things that's coming now, I know Marlboro has one, and we got a sign to do it, but we don't have the location per se, is an internet sales location. In other words, a parking lot area. It's posted with a sign, and it's got a camera, 24-hour monitored camera, to make sure that, you know, for safety. So you don't have to go to somebody's house to make a purchase over the internet. But I don't know that, I'd have to look and see what it would cost to get a camera system that would be suitable for that.
what is it for?
So if you made like a purchase through Craigslist, say,
Okay.
rather than go to somebody's house or meet at some place you don't feel safe, it's kind of a neutral, safe place to make
Oh,
the
I see,
sale.
I see.
parking lot, the police station with a
Camera.
You
24-hour
bought a
camera.
car
Yeah.
online, private sale.
Yeah, or something that might, you know, say if it's jewelry or something, you're worried about, you know, you're gonna show up with cash, and what's the other person really, their intent? If they insist on cash, how to, it's not, the sign that was sent to me, it's kind of a genius idea in a sense, is it was an app that sent me the sign, and who is it? They just trumped it up on their newspaper article that will put the site out. What it says, what it is though, is this app is how they promote it, because they promote their app through the signs. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a mutual beneficial thing. But
Yeah, so if the sign says, oh, go to this app and then you can do
you
it,
can
yeah.
find the closest place you
Yeah.
can make you can make the internet sale, and they give us the sign, so it generates traffic to their app too. It's kind of a, but anyway. But in Marlboro, even before that, and other departments before that, had put signs up for the area that would be suitable for that.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Shift gears. In the last hour or hour and a half, what's the message of the selectmen are trying to share with you?
Communication is what I see.
Public relations?
Yeah, but I think also communications, public and with you. I think, you know, you brought up that house check thing, I forgot. Yeah, we have that, you know, form, if somebody wants a house check while they're gone.
But the program could,
How many of those do you do in a year though?
We get quite a few of those.
Okay.
People stop
All
by
right.
and drop it off. Now, we don't necessarily go and rattle doors. When I worked in Alton, we'd actually have to physically go out and rattle doors. We don't. We do it as a means of, if there's a problem, who do we contact?
Mhm.
Kind of an informative thing. Or what cars should be there, what cars shouldn't be there if we go by and see something. Because a lot of people are maybe they're gone for the winter, maybe they don't have a caretaker. We have a few people that are regulars. Oh, we're going away on a trip now, so
So how many in a week?
how many what?
How many in a week?
I'd have to look it up. We usually have a list that gets updated every week and changes.
So I'm going
And
to
you
a
don't
wedding
put,
in a
you don't
couple
put that list on the internet, right?
I'm going to a wedding in a couple of weeks. Will you let my dogs in?
It's not quite exactly what we're thinking, and you probably wouldn't want it because
Yeah.
we'd have to do it at a time
He'll let them
available.
out, but not gonna let them back in.
The, on the checking on the elderly,
Yes.
generally, and I remember this from my time over in Ossipee, the motivators in those situations are not the old people living in the house. It's the son, it's the daughter,
Yes.
it's the
Yeah.
grandson, it's the granddaughter, who don't really like the idea of the person living alone at that age, but can't motivate them to not live alone. And so if you're not getting a lot of requests, maybe it's that you're asking the wrong people, and it may be the relative that you need to contact.
So countywide, so we do it ourselves,
Yeah,
the people calling here, but the county does it for a lot of other towns in the county, and I see the list, and it's maybe 10 people all countywide.
right, well, I don't know that they're doing a better job than you are.
Right.
You know, I think that it's that,
Well, you know, in general, we're self-reliant people, okay? And having gone through this with my own parents as they aged, we are generally less ready to give up this piece of independence than we should be. And it's not a bad thing, other than if you resist too long, then you end up in a bad situation. So how do we strategize helping people to recognize and embrace this interaction?
and maybe it's like, it's contacting Meals on Wheels, it's contacting the home health services. Because one of the things that has happened over the last decade or so is that the Medicare, Medicaid money for putting people in full-time care is evaporated. So unless you are desperately unhealthy, you aren't getting into Mountain View.
Well, and another thing that's a factor is that the vast majority of people want to remain in their own homes. They don't
Sure.
want to go live in a facility
Oh, yeah.
someplace. So it's not just whether there's, you know, the resources there, but it's like, and when you see some of these facilities, I mean, you're living in a much different situation than in your own home, so.
You should go to Mountain View. But at any rate.
What's that?
You should go over to Mountain View.
I've been to Mountain View, and that's fine, but I've also been in a number, and it's fine as it is, and for the people that are there, that's a tremendous place.
But the services that have been put in place to, or even charitable
Keep people in their
services
homes.
to keep the people in their homes, or maybe your contact list.
Mhm.
You know, you may not ever hear that Mrs. Jones is living out on Dame Road, getting Meals on Wheels and home health services. And then something bad happens, and it would have been maybe easier to,
Well, we saw the same thing with the blizzard in March, the people that really needed to not be in their home when the power was out, and that you and the fire and rescue folks went to great lengths to get out. You know, should have gotten out before it got that bad. It's like people on the floodplains that they're standing up on the roof, you know, when the waters come up because they don't want to leave their house. So how do we?
but if we proactively know
Well,
who they are,
Right,
then we
right.
can.
We understand who they are and have a better ongoing relationship with those people. Then when we get to that point, I think maybe we can get there sooner rather than later in terms of dealing with the need.
To follow up on that, I'll ask a blunt question. Have you and your officers got the names and had conversations with the weed watchers, the people that deliver Meals on Wheels, the visiting nurses? Now, they don't, the meter readers, there aren't as many as there used to be. The mailmen. So, hey, if you see a suspicious car, report it to us. Is this, has your department reached out to those people? And you're not making them police
No, I
officers,
understand.
but
I will say probably not as, obviously, we know some of them, but we haven't probably not had an outreach, sit down and, excuse me, you're talking the Lakos,
Because you guys
which is
know,
Mary Van McMurray for the most part.
Yeah.
So we know, what I mean?
I mean, you guys know what's appropriate and not appropriate.
Right.
The people that may be your information sources don't.
Hmm.
So should I call out the chief on this particular instance?
well, what happens is when he's the police officer and stops by and has a few minutes with me, well, I don't really want to bother you. Look, call the dispatch number here. Give us your phone number. If you in your judgment think something's wrong, please make the phone call. No one has to know that you called. I mean, it can be that type of conversation. I'm not suggesting that you have these secret agents out there, but I think you
No,
understand
I
where I'm coming
understand.
from.
I understand.
Because what's going to happen is, when he has that conversation with me, I go home, or when I see my neighbor Bill, says, let me tell you, I talked to Officer so-and-so. Do you realize, what a nice guy? I mean, it's called public relations.
All right, is this a dead horse yet? Can we stop beating it?
Yep.
I think we're,
I will just summarize by Lloyd Wood's expectation is there'd be a substantial effort on you and the police department's side, okay?
Okay.
And I'll follow up with you personally. Thank you again.
Chief.
Thank you, guys. Folks, I got this from Jack, who said that it's Old Woods Road cleanup. You're on top of it, right?
yeah, I think we
It seems
Get
like a
it
good
going.
deal, so. What's the price on there, 1,600?
1,200.
1,200? No, I know you've been concerned about the safety issue there. I went out and took a look at it, and I think you've been vigilant, and thank you for stepping forward.
This is town-owned property now?
Yes.
Yes.
So
Is there a motion?
I move that we approve it.
I'll second.
Okay, just for discussion, this is to remove the rubbish and debris from the property on Old Woods Road. The price is $1,200, and it's Gillum Excavation, and this is recommended by Jack. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Today's the 4th of August. From the Selectmen, anything else?
We're meeting Monday again?
We are meeting Monday at
4
4 o'clock. I don't know that we have anything else that needs to,
No, we've got to set up some meetings here for a few things.
yeah.
We can do that Monday.
Yeah.
All right.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second.
No discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. And
Hey, Karen.
Can you spell Gillum?
Gillam.
Do you,
UM, I'm sorry.
the guy about, I guess, that's food for the office?
I didn't,
You did not, okay.
no. That was, like, say, under the Chief SHagoury direction to limit the usage. But
Right,
you're talking
but we
about
talked
Wi-Fi?
about, he wasn't here, but I mentioned it to the selectmen.
Oh, I don't think I remember.
thank you,
that.
gentlemen.
Okay.
I didn't want to guess
Who-
wrong.
who's in charge? of
What I'll do is pass this one to
You, selectman or chief?
I mean,
Well, I'll put, shall I put Bug in the chief's here and he's gonna come back to the selectmen, or is he calling people, or? I'm just curious, I mean, last time I had asked to see if it was available.
right. I can talk to the chief about it and see what he says. Go from there, I'll get back to you.
Yeah, it's put the Bug in here, so.
Karen, do you have that document?
Yeah.
Came yesterday, but I forgot that.
I'll-
I always forget about this.
Karen, have a nice vacation, you've earned it.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you do to help us.
Thank you.
You going anywhere special?
No,
Turks and Caicos.